Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk about Remy Bader. Specifically, why she's probably the most hated plus-size woman in the fat-positive TikTok community. Let's begin. To start out, if you don't know who Remy Bader is, she became famous on TikTok back in 2020 with her realistic plus-size try-on hauls.
Back again with another realistic Target haul.
She's since amassed a huge following of over 2 million followers on TikTok, along with doing a clothing collaboration with Revolve to expand their clothing size range to 4X. So she's one of the most famous plus-sized influencers on TikTok. But the fat acceptance community does not like her.
I made a critique on that, and it wasn't saying Remy's a bad person. It was saying you need to realize how damaging this is.
Don't think that you're doing anything with like hate in your heart and you're not trying to be mean, but intent doesn't really matter.
And her platform is about empowering fat women, and I think this one just kind of missed the mark for a lot of us, I think.
Guys, I have the worst anxiety and I don't know why. Like, what? What is this? I'm not in the mood to wear spanx. Like, I don't feel supported by a lot of the plus size community because a lot of them say that I'm not big enough to be plus size. Then I'm too big to be mid-size. And then I get yelled at for hanging out with skinny people. So where do you want me to be? And what do you want me to consider myself?
The first huge reason the fat-positive community seems to hate Remy is because she talks about her insecurities about being fat, like how her stomach looks or her stretch marks.
What is this? I'm not in the mood to wear spanx. Like,
I have nothing against her, but I just think the internalized fat phobia in a lot of her try-on videos is kind of upsetting. And I know other people have talked about this, other fat women have talked about this, but as a fat woman, I think it's sad that Remy, feels the need to hide her stomach with spanx. We don't have to do that anymore, and she doesn't have to do that. And her platform is about empowering fat women, and I think this one just kind of missed the mark for a lot of us, I think.
So it looks like Remy made the horrible mistake of wanting to wear spanx to make her stomach look smaller because she didn't like how her stomach looked in a dress. That's fat phobia if I've ever seen it. But all jokes aside, you can be empowering and have a following and still have insecurities and show those insecurities. Remy doesn't have to be positive and happy and super confident all the time. That's not realistic, and it's disingenuous.
I'm not in the mood to wear spanx. Like, this isn't flattering.
Okay, I have a couple of things to say to my fat audience first and foremost. Number one, you do not ever have to wear spanx or tummy control tights or anything. Your tummy can be uncontrolled. The other thing I want to say is, again, there is a responsibility that comes along with having a large amount of followers, especially a large amount of followers who look up to you as a plus size representative, which is a little hard for me because I feel like there's not enough bigger fat people who have large followings like that. I feel like it's really rare to be above a size 24 and have millions of followers on your social media. And there's a responsibility if you are a small fat. There's a responsibility to not perpetuate fat phobia, and this idea of flattering or like my tummy has to be controlled. Look at it. Just allow your stomach to exist. Just allow it to exist. Apple-shaped bodies and big bellies, they're great. Let your belly exist.
So with this TikTok and the last one, it seems like the fat-positive community has collectively decided that insecurities about being fat, be it your stomach or any other part of your body, is a thing of the past. And if you do show some insecurities about your body as a fat woman, you are perpetuating fat phobia. So as a fat creator, Remy has a responsibility to have no insecurities at all, or at least never admit to them on camera, which, again, seems very fake and disingenuous.
You're literally a thin person, so I don't really understand why you're in my comments like this. Like, of course you don't understand. There's no reason for you to understand what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that you cannot be a representative voice for fat people if you do not know other fat people. Remy herself said she's only in community with like thin influencers. And that's why all of her content makes it seem like she's the first person to ever experience fat phobia. And she's always like dumbfounded by it and doesn't know how to respond. And I think that's why she has such a big platform, because she is still centering thinness as the norm in her content. And I'm not suggesting that Remy should go out of her way to make friends who are fat solely because they're fat. But as a plus size model, I know that in our industry, fat people are grouped together. So it's weird to me that she doesn't have fat friends. I know that she has been on set after set with other fat people. And if those fat people don't want to be her friend, it might be because she is still centering thinness in her life. She probably, based on her content, still says a lot of like fucked up fat phobic shit. Like claiming that fat people don't support her when she has done nothing to show support to fat people. And quite frankly, I do think that the people you are in community with says something about who you are and your belief systems and the way that you treat people of different marginalized identities. Because at the end of the day, fat people are everywhere. It's very easy to make friends with a fat person. We exist all over. So if you can't seem to make any fat friends, maybe it's time to look inward and assess the way that you are treating those people. Or even just looking at the way that you speak, perhaps the places that you go, whether or not you have accessible seating in your home and in the places that you go. All of these things are going to impact whether or not fat people want to be your friend, including if you are also fat. Because you can be a fat person who still centers their life around thinness, the pursuit of thinness, and thinness being the ideal. Even if you're not trying to lose weight or whatever. I don't know. I don't know Remy's deal. I don't even follow her.
There's a whole lot to say about this video. To start off, Jordan, the creator in the video, said that you cannot be a representative voice for fat people if you don't know other fat people. First of all, Remy having her platform and sharing her own experiences in her body isn't reliant on her having other fat friends. And it's ridiculous to say that having fat friends is a prerequisite for being a fat influencer. That's like saying you can't talk about your Jewish culture or experiences with anti-Semitism unless you have other Jewish friends. And then Jordan said that Remy acts like she's the first person to experience fat phobia. So apparently Remy doesn't react properly to the fat phobia she deals with. But what is the proper way for her to react? And even if you don't like the way she reacts, that doesn't seem like a reason to not support her. But after that, Jordan said that Remy probably says some fat-phobic stuff behind the scenes that we don't see, which is quite a claim to make. This is one of those TikToks that I wish had supporting evidence, because there were so many claims made about Remy, like about her friends and how she centers thinness and her bad reaction to fat phobia, that I haven't seen in any of Remy's videos. Most of her videos are of her trying on stuff, or going out in vlog-type videos, or very short videos using popular TikTok sounds. So there's nothing to support the idea that Remy is secretly fat-phobic, and we're just not seeing it. And all I've ever seen Remy say about her friends is that she doesn't feel supported by the plus-sized community on TikTok. And can you really blame her? When people are saying all of these negative things about her with little to no evidence, I can fully understand why Remy doesn't feel supported. But let's go back to the point that Remy doesn't have enough fat friends to be a fat influencer. And Jordan's statement that it's easy to make fat friends, so if you can't, then that says something about you. But what if Remy doesn't have fat friends, not because of the way she treats other people, but because of the way they treat her? It could be that because people in the body positive community, like Jordan here and the other people in this video, chastise her for the way she talks about her own body, or maybe they also think like Jordan and think that because all of her friends are too skinny, that means that she can't be trusted, so other fat people refuse to be around her. Or maybe it is Remy's choice not to have more fat friends, because maybe she doesn't want to be friends with people that judge her moral character by the amount of fat or thin friends she has. Or maybe she doesn't want to be friends with people that try to dictate how she talks about herself on her own TikTok page. So there are a lot of reasons why Remy might not have a lot of fat and fat positive friends that aren't because she's secretly mean to fat people behind the scenes. And the last thing I'm going to touch on is the claim that Remy doesn't have fat friends because she doesn't go to places where fat people are. Which begs the question, are there specific locations that fat people frequent more so than skinnier people? Is this a thing? Are we talking about torrid? Like people walk into the store and you're supposed to make friends that way? Or are these actual social venues that are more frequented by people of certain sizes? Because the only place I can think of that might be true is a Lizzo concert. But ironically, Remy already has a video on her page that she recorded at a Lizzo concert. So we can rule that one out. But if anyone watching has any idea where these places are that fat people congregate more so than skinnier people, please let me know in the comments, because I really want to know what these places are.
At the same time, there's a reason.
Hey girl. I don't normally make videos like this, but I really wanted to reach out and maybe shed some light on the subject, because I think you're just not understanding specifically what the criticism is. I did watch your entire video, and I, suggest everybody else does too. And I understand where you're coming from, and I understand what your intent is, but I don't think you're doing anything maliciously, and I don't think that you're doing anything with hate in your heart, and you're not trying to be mean, but intent doesn't really matter, especially when you have a following of this size. Just because you have a good heart and you're going in it for the right reasons doesn't mean the impact is going to be good. And with a following of that size, it is up to you to recognize this and see this. And I understand your reasoning of clearly this must be relatable, otherwise I wouldn't have the following that I do. But I think for a lot of creators who build themselves on relatability, there comes a point where your relatability feels more like a caricature, and you are really towing the line between those two things, and the humor feels more like digs. You know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? And correct me if I'm wrong, but you have said that you don't feel welcome or included in the plus size community. And have you maybe considered that stuff like this is why? Your verbiage and stuff and the jokes that you make is all very intentional, and does have meaning and have impact. So when you get these criticisms and these critiques, you're not taking them, and that's why people don't want to include you, and they don't want you to represent them. I used to follow you. I had similar experiences in dressing rooms and stuff like that, and I did think that some of your stuff was funny, but it turned into less of clothes are so weird and more into like, my body is disgusting and why do I look like this? And that hurts. And that's why I unfollowed. And I think there just needs to be some introspection here, you know? I hope you have a nice day.
The worst part about this entire TikTok was the quote, "Your relatability feels more like a caricature." That's basically saying you talking about your insecurities seems fake and disingenuous. And not just that, but because I find it fake, you should change it. But Remy seems to have made her platform on relatability, so even if you or some other people find it fake, plenty of other people find it genuine. And she also said, the humor feels more like digs, you know what I mean? Honestly, no, I don't really understand. Who is Remy taking a dig at by talking about her insecurities? If Remy making jokes or talking about her own body in a certain way feels like a dig to you, that's a you problem. That's not her being offensive. But this TikTok, along with all of the others I've shown, basically prove that the body positive community doesn't like Remy because she doesn't stay on code with fat acceptance. This woman even said, "We don't welcome you in our community because you don't listen to our criticisms." Remy doesn't represent fat people exactly the way body positive TikTok wants her to represent them by reacting properly to fat phobia, by having a correct number of friends in the body positive and plus sized community, by talking about her body in the quote unquote correct way, by standing up for bigger, fatter people in a public manner. And because Remy doesn't do those things, the plus size community has made it clear that Remy isn't welcome. But the last reason people tend to dislike Remy is because of her clothing line. Remy released a clothing line in 2021 with Revolve that went up to a size 4X. The new clothing line was called Inclusive, but it wasn't considered inclusive enough for the body positive community.
And I think the video is incredible. Like, you should go watch it. But I just wanted to build on it because this is the frustration I've been feeling for a really long time. Last year I made a video during Fashion Week when she was invited by a designer and sat front row for a designer that doesn't make plus size clothing. And the designer like sent her an outfit and like she was making videos about like how they barely fit her, but then would make videos about like, oh, look at all the inclusion that's happening. And there's like literally one plus size model when the designer doesn't even make plus size clothes. I made a critique on that, and it wasn't saying Remy's a bad person. It was saying you need to realize how damaging this is. I realize that I cannot speak on larger fat people's experiences, but I always push. I will never or rarely work with a brand who isn't size inclusive, past the 3X, or is actively making those changes. So like the fact that the Revolve thing only went up to 2 or 3X and now they're expanding, that's dumb. You need to, if you're gonna be someone who's such a speaker for the plus size community, like you say, you need to keep them in mind, or you need to realize that you can't keep them in mind because it's not natural to you and you're not making those strides to do that. I'm just sick of like people not like acting like they're inclusive when they're not. And people need to be held accountable for that. It's so, like, you could put in the effort and you don't. Like, it's ridiculous.
Back again with a conversation about Remy Bader and just some of the projects she has going on. Remy, it's not enough to just be the representative for this company. You now have a seat at the table, which I've said before. There needs to be conversation around how size inclusive isn't up to a 3X. The language needs to change. The education behind it needs to change. Like, I know you know this. I know you keep talking about this is the starting point and there's so much more to come. We're done waiting. This shouldn't be the starting point. And you should be able to sit at the table and advocate for sizes above a 3X and or at least say, like, stop using the word size inclusive if we're only going to a 3X. Again, the hardest part is I know you know all of this.
This is why we need someone over a 1X at the table.
So this all boils down to people being mad that Remy's clothing line wasn't inclusive enough because it went up to a size 4X instead of a size 7 or 8X. And for context, a size 4X is still about a size 24, which is really big. And a size 7X would be around a 32 or 34, I believe, which is massive. So the fat positive community doesn't like Remy because she associated herself with a brand that didn't make a clothing line that went up to at least a size 32. But I think all of this talk of Remy should have done more and she has a seat at the table so she should have said something is nonsense. First of all, the size range of the Revolve line was expanded with Remy's collaboration, so it's still more inclusive than it was before. 2, it's unrealistic to expect every brand to make clothes up to a size 32. And 3, I'm sure Remy didn't have nearly as much control over the clothing line as people like to act like she did. Her involvement in the line, like most influencers that do collaborations, is mostly for publicity and marketing, not huge decision-making behind the scenes like exactly what the size range is going to be. I can guarantee that if Remy said, I'm not doing this collaboration unless the sizes go up to an 8X, the brand would have dropped her. It would be a huge amount of extra money put into the clothing line to add 3 or 4 more sizes to it, especially sizes that large. And the brand almost certainly wouldn't have done it. If Remy refused to be a part of the line if it didn't go up to an 8X, they either would have scrapped the line entirely or most likely found another plus-sized influencer to do the collaboration with that was okay with the line going up to a size 4X. So it really doesn't make sense to be mad at Remy for the size range of this line. It was never going to be released with a size range up to a 7 or 8X.
I already know people are going to comment on this video saying like, well, she's not responsible for how you feel, blah, 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 blah. But I'm having a particularly hard day. Wow, look, tear just fell out of my eye. I'm having a particularly hard body image day. And seeing this stupid brand deal of Remy's and her saying of reducing the appearance of my stretch marks, like, really just made me feel bad again. Like, I was just starting to feel good again. And I am somebody who, like Remy, became plus size, like, later on in my life. And recently I've been seeing photos of myself when I was thinner, and it's been really hard because I'm someone who, like, really loves the way I look, but I don't know why all of a sudden these photos are getting to me. And then so seeing her post this, like, I guess the Love Your Marks campaign, like, they're trying to say that, like, you should love the skin you're in, although there's still, there's still a company to get rid of your stretch marks, and Remy just said that. Anyway, this probably makes no sense, but I'm, like, that really pissed me off, because I was starting to feel better again, and now I don't feel great. But it, like, I guess I'm gonna have to unfollow Remy now. That's, that's just, I don't know. I can't. That's just not what I need to see right now. And, like, it feels really bad. It feels really bad. Because when you're trying to love yourself and then you see someone who, like, builds their platform off of, like, fat people, and then she just, in the first couple seconds, she just said that she's trying to reduce her stretch marks, which, like, that's fine. Like, she can do that. Like, but it's, I don't know, it's just so backwards, and it just made me feel really bad. So that's just, I'm just speaking what's on my mind. So nobody, if you are gonna tell me that she's not responsible for whatever, I don't care. Don't comment it, because I really don't want to hear it.
I won't comment it but I'll say it. Remy is not responsible for you feeling insecure. But I appreciate that this is the most honest TikTok about people's dislike of Remy that I have ever seen. All of the other ones talk about how Remy's attitude towards her own insecurities don't uplift fat women like they should, or how Remy's trying too hard to be relatable, or how Remy isn't involved in fat politics as much as she should. But this woman was honest and just said, seeing Remy talk about her body in a certain way exacerbated my already existing insecurities. And I greatly respect that she admitted that and is taking steps to prevent becoming upset later by unfollowing Remy. I think that's the healthiest response you can have if you find that someone's content is consistently upsetting you when you come across it on your feed. And I wish more people would take the route of unfollowing and curating your social media feeds in a way that's healthy instead of attacking the creator for saying non-offensive things that happen to trigger your insecurities. So good on her for doing that.
Fat people are pissed off with Remy Bader. Here's why. As many of us know, Remy Bader launched a collection with Revolve with sizes up to a 3X and then last minute added a 4X. There are so many issues with this, but I made a video a while ago and we all know that 3X 22 to 24 or 4X 24 to 26 in Revolve's case is still not size inclusive. Blocking fat people with dissatisfaction for her size inclusivity branding, though, says a lot. She is supposedly one of us, a plus-size person who has difficulty finding cute clothes. Remy Bader is a plus-size creator who is not for fat people. She is plus-size, but she's not in the plus-size community, and certainly no shred of support for fat liberation. She is a creator for straight-size people or small fats who bond over the fact that they are not accepted in fashion. This is not body positivity in the slightest. So this leads me to my next portion of rambles. Remy Bader is not the face of body positivity. Anyone, as in straight-size people or small fats, that considers her the face of the body positivity movement are probably part of the side of the internet that will preach self-love and body acceptance until it comes to fat folks trying to claim the same energy and advocating for fat liberation because it's unhealthy or promoting obesity. She's coined the plus-size girl because she's the perfect amount of plus size and no bigger, no fatter, and the perfect amount of insecure versus secure about said body. And while trying to be revolutionary and making waves, she's actually not making waves at all amongst the real fat people that would be supporting her if she just leaned into the fact that she is a bigger girl. Wants to be treated normally because fat people can live regular lives too. Or the liberation of fat people. So instead of blocking fat creators and calling us haters, maybe she could get involved in the politics of body positivity, the history of it, and the history of fat liberation and what that movement means. If tons of fat people have critiques about her being the face of the body positivity movement, maybe she should listen to them.
This video really sums it all up. It hits on all the points of why the fat liberation movement dislikes Remy. That her clothing line only goes up to a size 26, which means she doesn't care about fat people. That Remy doesn't support fat liberation and fat politics enough. That she's pandering to certain people by presenting herself as a perfect mix of insecure and confident, and that her relatability is fake. And because Remy refuses to change and listen to all the criticisms the fat liberation movement has for her, they've made it clear that she's not part of their community. And a lot of notable fat activists agreed with this video. And shockingly enough, or not shockingly enough, the queen of fat acceptance herself, Tess Holliday, also agreed with the statements in this video. And if the queen of fat positivity herself doesn't think that Remy belongs in the community, then that says a lot. I came up with the idea for this video because I kept seeing more and more videos about how awful Remy is, and every reason I've seen of why people dislike her is worse than the last. She doesn't talk about fat phobia in the correct way. She dislikes parts of her fat body at times. She doesn't have enough fat friends. She used the word flattering. She doesn't advocate enough for people who are a size 6X, and on and on and on. The TikToks I showed in this video are the tip of the iceberg. There are so many more. Remy seems to be the fat positive community's favorite punching bag. And I personally don't know Remy. I can't vouch for her character, but all of the negative criticisms I've seen of her seem completely unfounded. Remy just has the nerve to be fat, beautiful, open about her insecurities, and extremely successful while not making her entire personality around her body size. Which means if Remy wanted to, she could lose weight and still keep her following because her entire brand isn't built around fat liberation and being proud and happy that she's fat, which isn't the case for most of the fat influencers that dislike and ostracize her, including Tess Holliday. In the last TikTok I showed, the woman even said that Remy would be welcomed into the body positive community if she just leaned into being a bigger girl. So they want Remy to not just be an influencer that happens to be fat. They want her to make her entire brand and platform revolve around being fat and being unabashedly proud about being fat. And that's why people get angry when Remy talks about some of her insecurities that she has with her body, because she's not constantly being overjoyed about every aspect of being fat all the time, which doesn't show fatness in the positive, happy way that a lot of body positive influencers demand. So, yeah, Remy represents the level of success and perceived beauty that the rest of the fat activist community is very envious of. And because of that, they'll probably continue to hate on her and make sure that she knows that she's not welcome in the community.